everyone, hi there. Yeah, exciting times at the moment, lots to update you on. It's been a while since I made a video. I have these awesome new oracle cards which I'm very pleased with. They are amazing. I'll show you the box. There we go. It's called Art Through the Eyes of the Soul Oracle. Yeah, and they're pretty amazing, and there's a pretty amazing story behind how I got them as well, which is pretty cool. The other weekend I went up to Avebury. For those of you who know, Avebury is where there are these gigantic stone circles and there's a town or a little village right in the middle of it, and you can actually go inside, you can touch the stones, it's really awesome, and you can go and just walk around, and it's National Trust, and if you're a member you get to park for free, so that's a big bonus. Otherwise it's quite expensive, but actually seeing the stones themselves is free, so you can't really complain too much. Yeah, so I drove up to Avebury. Weather wasn't too good. We've been having some really strange kind of muggy weather recently here in the south of England. The weather doesn't really know what to do with itself. It's kind of warm and then it rains and then it just goes muggy and cloudy for a bit, and then you might get a storm if you're really lucky. And on that day we were driving up and we're actually going past Stonehenge to get to Avebury, which is a bit further north from where I am, a bit further towards Swindon. And actually driving at this point, and I was filming on and off, but using the sat nav, so I couldn't film all the time, so I have some footage which is quite interesting, which I'll try and include. So just coming up to Stonehenge, I didn't realise we were nearly at Stonehenge at that point because they've changed the road layout and I don't really recognise it anymore. And all of a sudden I started feeling really strange. I had like this pressure on top of my head, which I get when there's a storm in the air or when spirit are around doing stuff, or when, you know, energy is basically moving around, and it can be quite uncomfortable. And I was saying to James, "Oh, I don't feel good, this is weird, something feels weird," and the air just felt electric. And all of a sudden there were all these like lightning bolts just all around us, just tiny little lightning bolts touching the ground. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. I was freaking out going, "Is that lightning? James, can you see that?" I mean, he was driving. James was my other half. He couldn't look. He was looking at the road. He didn't see them, but it was absolutely amazing. The air was electric. It was actually quite frightening because the energy didn't feel good. And I normally like storms, so it felt quite strange to me that the energy wasn't good. For the energy to be bad in a storm means there's some serious, you know, stuff going on. And it made me quite anxious that day. So we drove on anyway. Very shortly after that, hit with torrential rains. There was flash flooding in Devizes as we were driving through, and it was literally like this deep. It was coming up over the pavement and cars were having to stop and pull over and take it in turns to try and drive around these gigantic puddles that have just appeared. And oh, it was awful. We did have to actually pull over at one point and sort of ride out the rain because visibility was so bad. We were going about 10 miles an hour at one point and going, "Whoa, where's the road?" And there was nowhere to pull over because it's MOD land and you're not allowed to pull over. There's no pull-ins or anything. There's no nowhere to stop. So you just have to keep going. Finally got to Avebury. The rain had calmed down a little bit by then, but it was still very much raining. So we parked in the middle of the stones. There's a pub in the middle of the stones, which is really awesome. And I didn't feel good, but we got out the car, went to have a look at the stone circle. We got inside one of the stone circles and I felt a lot calmer. The energy was very much protected in there. And I walked over and touched a couple of the stones because you're allowed to do that, which is wonderful, and you can feel the energy coming off them. So, you know, really strongly recommend going to Avebury if you're into that sort of thing, into monoliths, and you'll feel the power of these stones. I was walking over because there were two really big stones that caught my eye, and I thought, "Oh, they're interesting, I want to go over there." And I felt like it was some sort of gateway. And I walked over and I touched one of the stones, and the stone actually spoke to me. All objects and things have their own spirit and they have their own voice to some degree, and no, it wasn't like a booming voice going, "Who goes there?" or anything like that. It was just a very quiet voice in my head that said, "We are gateway stones, we're guardians, we're basically here to protect you." And they said, "Stay in the circle." And I was like, "Why?" They were like, "Just stay in the circle, do as you're told." So they knew what was going on that day. There was some serious energy going on. And so just out of curiosity, because I don't usually do as I'm told, I stepped out of the circle. I stepped through the stones out of the circle. And the energy felt completely different on the other side. And I said to James, who was with me, "Come here." how do you feel stepping outside on this side and how do you feel on that side? I didn't tell him which one was inside and outside. I was like, right, stand here and then stand here. And he said, I don't feel good standing over there, which was on the outside. And he felt much better standing on the inside. So we went back inside the stone circle until the stones said I could come out. Basically, they were like, would you just stay there for a minute because the energy's not good. We need to keep you in here. Just stay in there and we'll take care of you. And the energy was so peaceful inside the stones. It was a big relief because I'd felt really unwell on the drive up with what happened at Stonehenge. I'd felt really uncomfortable and it felt as though somebody was messing with the energy, like there were outside forces, somebody was trying to make things happen, there was something afoot, somebody was working some magic, or they were doing something with the energy but without good intentions, shall we say. There was some bad stuff going on that day, so it was quite scary. And actually be protected in the stones in Avebury was really nice. So we stayed within the stones for some time, you know, popped in the pub, had some of the local tipple there, the local real ales. I like real ale, they're awesome. And then afterwards, when the weather calmed down and the air changed and you could feel the pressure change. I always feel the pressure changing when there's a storm anyway. Some of us do. Some of us are sensitive to it. Got these awesome cards while I was there. So I've got my lovely cards. It was a very, very powerful day. Very interesting day. I'm still not exactly sure what was going on, but it was a very interesting day. So, yeah. What I will do is I'm going to pull some cards for you in a minute. We'll do a little reading just for today to see what message there is for us all moving forwards, because we're moving into a new school term for a lot of people. A lot of people are moving on in their lives at the moment or getting ready to move on. It's that time of year, you know, we're coming up to autumn in the northern hemisphere or spring in the southern hemisphere. So everything's changing right now. It's a time of change, so it's a really good time to pull some cards and see what's happening. So let's have a look. Okay, well, this makes sense. We have the Great Goddess. And if you can see on the card, it says regeneration, death and rebirth. So it's very much a transitional time for all of us at the moment. And there are these like little ghost butterflies in the background of the card there, and the goddess herself on the card looks almost ghostly. She's kind of blue-grey, isn't she? And she's talking very much about this being a time where we're all growing and changing, and it may feel like a death in some ways, and change can feel very difficult because we have to let go of things to let new things come in, new people come in, new situations, new jobs come in. And that can be really difficult because we're letting go of what we're used to. You know, it's what we know. It may not be the best, but we know what it is and it feels pretty safe. So to let go of that can be really challenging. And sometimes it can be unexpected as well. Sometimes change can happen when we're not expecting it. You know, we might have asked the universe for help. We might have asked God or the angels or whoever it is you speak to, whatever you believe in, it doesn't matter. But whoever or however you ask for things when you ask or when you pray. Sometimes we'll ask for something and the only way they can make that happen is to remove something from our lives. And that could be a relationship. And that could be somebody just breaks up with you. You could just suddenly lose your job. And you're like, oh my goodness, what's going on? I asked for good stuff and it's all falling apart. But sometimes when things are falling apart, they're just getting ready to rearrange themselves so that they can come together in this new, better way for you. And that's very much what's going on at the moment. We're also in a Mercury retrograde period, which astrologers will tell you is always an interesting period where things move around and we look at things and reconsider our options and review things and we look backwards, and people from our past can randomly turn up. That's always a weird one, especially if it's an ex and you're like, oh, thought I got rid of you. Whoa, this is weird. So it is a very interesting time at the moment. And then after Avebury, I actually went to Glastonbury the day after. I don't know why, it just happened. I haven't been to Glastonbury for about 20 years. Suddenly it was like, I feel like I need to go to Glastonbury, so we went. Again, had some bizarre things happen with the weather on the way up, so I don't know, it was the energy of that weekend was very, very strange. But when I got there, I absolutely loved it, and I really wasn't expecting to because I don't like the whole hippie thing. I don't like tie-dye. I'm not one of these people who wanders around, you know, barefoot in tie-dye, you know, singing and chanting or what have you. I mean, there is a time and a place for chant, and that's great. But that's not me, and I was like, oh, I'm going to hate it. Why am I even going? Okay, we'll go, fine. But I absolutely loved it, and I hope to go again. So yeah, well worth a visit. It might not be what you're expecting it to be. It might be better. So that was fun. That was awesome. And I had a little spiritual experience there of myself, which I won't go into right now. We'll cover that in another video, because it's getting along and you'll get bored. But yeah, it's very much a time of change, time of transition at the moment, so just be prepared for it. Don't worry, it's okay. Things are moving around and we're getting ready to move into a new phase. So just go with it, just chill out in the energy, rest, regenerate, whatever it is that you need to do, review your life, look at what's happening, and get ready for what's coming. Because hey, it's going to be awesome. It always is. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.